Welcome back, everybody, to the Be Honest Man podcast, discussion among men of various perspectives on subjects from the taboo to the typical. This is episode number 8. We're going to be talking about guns, firearms, gun control, all that good stuff. So, besides Steven's tiny arms, do you guys own any guns? Why do you own them? Let's talk about it.
I own a couple, and I own them because for self-defense purposes and because I enjoy them. I enjoy shooting them. I think guns are cool.
I have inherited some firearms from my father-in-law, and I also think they are pretty cool. I enjoy shooting them. I don't carry though currently. So that's something I'm thinking about doing.
So does that mean like you just have them at your house, but you never take them anywhere with you,
Yeah.
unless you're going to like
Yeah.
a range, I guess. But
Yeah. Yeah, don't take them out anywhere.
I don't have any guns. I am not a fan of guns. I think guns are quite unnecessary for the general public to have. Maybe you could make the argument for like a pistol or something for like protection if you really wanted to make that argument. But outside of that, which we'll probably get into with some of the other topics, I don't think a lot of it is necessary. And a lot of the reasonings for them, that you hear in arguments is silly.
You have no desire to own a gun.
Nope. Not at all. Not in the slightest. They make me uncomfortable.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't own any
Fair.
guns. I don't live in a great area. I will be investing in one. I've shot many guns, just never owned one for myself.
I think I shot a gun once. I was on a camping trip and somebody brought like a little like 22 rifle or something out there, and we like shot it off into the distance like at some rocks or something. It was probably a bad idea, but we did that.
It's like the worst thing to shoot at.
Yeah, it was like across a river or something. We were out like wilderness camping, not like in a thing. We were out in the middle of nowhere on some people's land, and yeah, somebody had one, and everybody just taking turns firing it off, and even just them shooting it made me uncomfortable. And I might have fired it one. I don't even remember. I might not have even shot it. I might have been like, no, I'm good, because it's a lot of risk with that.
Oh yeah, it is a very serious thing, and they're not toys, and I guess that's the one thing you should make sure.
Yeah, they're not
Everybody
toys, so why does everybody need one? Like, it's not something you collect and play with, but that's what people do. So
Yeah.
So Steven, I think you're really the only one that's kind of just against the general populace owning firearms.
to a degree, yeah.
So what are your reasons for feeling that way?
I just don't think there's a point in people walking around with shotguns or ARs or anything that shoots automatic or that can be modded to shoot automatic or whatever, that like there's no purpose in it. The fact that people have like, you know, I'm gonna get these gun names wrong probably, but like it was AR-15s or M4s or AKs, and it's like you don't need one of those. All the times you see the shootings and stuff, they have something where I'm just like, why should they have that? And it's always, oh, if they only had a pistol, think about how much damage less they would do, right? And so there's so many drawbacks and the arguments against it. And again, I feel like I'm going to dive into so many of these things early on are just stupid. Second Amendment, what if we got to rise up against they got tanks, bro. Like they got jets and bombs. Nobody cares about your gun. Like, no, it's just dumb arguments. Oh, the tyranny, brother, it's over. Like you've already lost. Give your gun up. Like, I need to protect myself. Yeah, you need 37 guns in your house. Shotguns, rifles, snipers, everything to protect yourself. No.
You don't think that having a long gun of any sort just for home protection, obviously when you say walking around with it, like people don't typically do that. They can, but I mean they don't typically do. But just having one in your home, that's not.
Why? You said for protection. Are you being like invaded by like, is a SEAL team breaking in? You got to take him out. No, dude. If somebody comes in your house, you got a pistol. Cool, you should be fine.
So
why do you need an AR?
Pistols put little holes, rifles put bigger holes, and shotguns take big chunks off of people. Shotguns shotguns work. Like you hit someone with it. I mean, you don't have to worry about
Yeah,
Did you
there's
hit
no
him enough? Did you anything? You know
yeah,
what I
there's
mean?
no
Like,
aiming with a shotgun. You just point and shoot, and whatever's on the other side of that barrel is gonna get hit one way or
And
the other.
I
that's
don't
see, but
know that.
that's
I
not
don't know that
actually
that's a good
true.
thing either. Like,
So
I don't know
shotguns
that that's a good thing.
actually, unless it is not rifled or it is sawed off very short, um, shotguns even at, and I could be a little off, maybe even 50 yards are still only maybe a little bigger than a softball as far as spread. It's not like the movies where it's like a blunderbuss, you know what I mean? Where you fire and then like the everything within a your field of view is taking pellets. Like
Yeah,
it
movies and
doesn't
video
quite.
games really messed up people's perceptions of how shotguns actually work.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
I
they think it's
mean,
like a cone AOE.
yeah, essentially.
For all the nerds out there, you caught that
Yeah,
reference?
cone AOE. It's
AoE
not an
means area of effect.
yeah. It doesn't
Area
go
of
out in a
effect.
cone in front of you.
It's like
It's
a dragon's breath.
so it's more straight on, but it's just a larger section. Like, it
Yeah,
still
I mean,
stays
when you're talking
decently clumped together.
double aught buck, you're talking about big pellets. Maybe I don't maybe depending on the load, you could have like a certain amount.
But you don't need one of those. And let's say it's
What I'm
okay.
saying
So
is
let's say
that
you
if
can't
I
have
have a
one of
pistol
those.
in my home for
Then give up the
defense,
pistol.
right? I
Have to be
with
trained in
me
it.
having a
Good at
pistol,
it.
I fire. It may take several shots, right? While with my shotgun, it's probably not going to take more than one. That's kind of the thing. Now, that's just why I have it.
And shotguns are one of the best selling home defense guns for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, some people buy them for the fear factor of it, right? Pump shotguns. You hear that, like people think that might be enough to scare someone off. I'm not of that same view. I mean, the thing with guns is that when you pull up a gun to use it on somebody, that's at that you should be at the point where you need to use it. And if they are in your house, I think that it's safe to assume they mean you harm. And yeah, that's just giving away your position. But that's just a very, I guess, overly in-depth way of thinking about it. But that's just my view on it. I'm not worried of scaring somebody off. Like in the state that we live in, for me to be legally covered, I have to have retreated as far as I can. So in the case of my house, it's unless I'm in my living room, in which I am trapped, if someone comes through either of my doors, then I am expected to retreat all the way to my bedroom, and then if someone enters that room, I can shoot them in self-defense. Now, if I hear someone in my living room, and I'm like, oh, hell no, you're not taking my TV, and I go out there and shoot them, Sean gets to go to prison.
If you're convicted.
If I'm convicted. Certain states, some of the states that you may live in, who knows? Castle doctrines, things like that. If they come in your house, they are fair game. If you got a big ass mansion and you hear someone on the other side, it's Hunger Games, bro. Like, it doesn't matter. You can go hunt them down. It's different here. So
So then,
So-
how about like hunting? How do you feel about someone owning like rifles or shotguns specifically for hunting?
You don't need anything automatic to hunt. You
you
don't.
can't
know.
legally own an automatic. Like, the vast majority of people cannot own automatic weapons.
Okay. You don't like. There should be a specific set of weapons that you can have for hunting. You don't need to hunt. Like, you're doing it for sport. So you're owning a weapon that can harm human beings quite easily simply for sport.
Well,
And then
why do you think most people hunt for sport?
how many people do you know that hunt to live?
That's different. Hunting for sport hunting means that you're not shooting it to harvest it in any way other than to have a trophy or to shoot it and then just leave it.
Okay.
Most people will harvest the animal and then use the meat.
Is that
they
why
don't
they're
rely on it for
That's what I'm saying.
entire
Is that why they're
sustenance.
doing it, or is that just like, oh,
Yeah.
I killed it, I might as well do it?
No,
You know?
I don't really think I know anybody who's just like, I like to kill things, but also it produces meat, so I guess I'll.
You don't know a lot of
guess
hunters,
I'll-
then, I guess. I don't know. That's weird.
I know a lot.
The hunters I know are excited to go out and hunt. It's not like, oh, I'm really looking forward to deer meat. I've never heard somebody say, I want to hunt because I'm really looking forward to eating that deer. It's always, I want to go shoot the animal. Like,
I just
I
think
don't know,
that
I've ever heard
you
that.
have a either poor experience or just
It's what
an
I've always
incredibly
seen.
minuscule sample size of strange people.
Okay. So again, I don't think most of the guns people own, the number of guns that people own or anything is even remotely like, oh yeah, that seems reasonable because you go hunting. And you don't need so many of the weapons that you use for it. Like, you don't need to hunt. It's not a necessity for like anybody, basically. It's just a choice to go out and shoot something if you want to eat it afterwards, whatever. But you don't need that, and you don't need the weaponry to do it either.
Yeah, in a modern society, those it is a definitely is a want and not a need,
Yeah.
unless you're out in
And that's
Alaska
why I say about
somewhere away from
it's
a
for sport.
store.
That's
Yeah,
why I say it's for sport. Like, you're making the choice to go out and do that for the enjoyment of it, not because you need to. There's no necessity.
yeah, I can agree with that.
I mean, do you feel this? I mean, given there's not weapons of the same caliber involved, but like, do you feel the same way about fishing? Like, it's stupid for someone to go fishing because they could just go to the supermarket or go to McDonald's and get a fillet of fish?
No, they don't need to own a weapon to do
No, but
that
I'm saying, but like, so your only objection is weapons, then I just don't understand the whole rest of your argument about. Anyways,
because it's a
so
weapon that you're getting without any necessity. You don't need it. Like,
okay,
you're not like,
I
if
get
you're
what
going, yeah, you're owning a weapon for a purpose, like for no purpose, essentially.
well, it is. I mean, there's purpose. There's a lot of people where hunting is traditional to them.
All right, so if we go from there, a lot of people, want guns just banned entirely. I think the idea of that is asinine.
Because you don't think people because you think people should have guns, or because you think it's too far gone and it would never be able to happen.
I look at it like, compare it to anything else that's illegal. Compare it to like hard drugs. People are gonna get it regardless, right? But I think if you take it to guns, the people that are still gonna get the guns are the people you don't want to have guns.
Pretty much. I mean, it's kind of already playing out at this moment. Like I already alluded to earlier, um, automatic weapons the general populace cannot have. I believe that you can get access if you pay the government an excessive amount of money and you have to pass an extreme amount of background checks and it takes a long number of years, or there's some ways to make it happen. I'm not 100% sure on that process. Do not quote me on it. I just know it's extremely, extremely difficult. The number of people who legally own them is extremely small. And yet, they exist. You can go on YouTube and look up any, police activity, any of these YouTube channels, and you will find people spraying at cops or any other number of situations. So these things are illegal. They're the most illegal of illegal guns. And yet a lot of people have them illegally. So I just don't see how, like Chris is saying, like there's no way that you're going to get these out of the hands of people who aren't or the ones you least want to have them, like the people who are intent on using them in bad ways.
How many, so for instance, all the school shootings, right? And the way that people have done this, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure there's almost always where they come out because people are like, how do they have the guns? And it's almost always something along the lines of they had access to them.
Yeah, most of them have been purchased legally.
Yeah. Totally through the system. Totally fine. Go in and just slaughter a bunch of kids through the system. Those aren't illegal guns. Those aren't guns. Oh, we can't get them off the streets. The bad guys have rifles or ARs. That's not what we're talking about.
No,
because those people aren't doing it.
So we're switching subjects now.
Well, no, but we're saying that it's the bad guys have the guns already, but like we don't hear about those people or guns.
So if a person's intent is to do harm to a mass of people, say a school shooting, and they know that the best way to do this is through a firearm, Do you not think that if that's what they're set on doing, they're going to find some way to access it?
I don't. I think that friction is what causes it's anything in life. The harder it is to do, the less likely it will be done. You can tell me that this
Yeah,
kid who wanted to go shoot that school up, if he didn't have access to a gun, would he have gone to some black market and found some guy with it? No, I do not think he would have. Would he have done something else stupid? Potentially. Would he have tried to stab some people? Maybe. Would he have gotten a pistol somewhere? Maybe. Off Craigslist. I don't know. Would he have gone and gotten the weaponry that he had? Would he have? No, I think that friction, the moment that when somebody kind of snaps and they go, oh, I can do this, and they grab and they get through and they, no, I think the idea that, oh, if we take these guns away, people will just find, these school shooters will just find ways to get these guns. No, I really don't think they will. These people don't, like, most of them, I don't see that. It's just my take. It's my opinion. There's not like a black market dealer sitting on a corner that's just like, yo, who wants these guns, dude? Like, who wants these guns?
I second that. Well, especially when it comes to school shooter situations, that a lot of the kids who got them either purchased them or were given them. And if those situations did not exist, I don't think they would go out and find some guy in New York City in the back alleyway and say, "Hey, I need a gun." Because the kids who've done that kind of stuff don't seem to be the type. Don't get me wrong. I don't know that. I'm not putting
Yeah.
any personality traits on them, but
Well, think about it from the other side, not the person purchasing, but the dealer. Do you think these guys who have access to these high-tech weaponry or any of that stuff, you're talking about, oh, they got these automatic rifles they're blazing down cops with, do you think those guys are selling to randoms? Like, do they're just like,
Yeah,
oh, that
probably.
random person? They're probably selling to people that they can, like, verify they're not going to get caught through, that they're not going to show. And I know what is, they're like shaving stuff down, whatever. But like, there's probably some sort of level of work they do to make sure that nothing is coming back to them, that they're not going to be at fault for something. Like, I reckon they're selling to, like, I don't know, maybe established gangs or random Bob Joe off the street. Probably not as much,
Yeah.
unless he has crazy contacts or
Well,
something.
the fact of the matter, it's like, we're not talking about the people getting access to automatic weapons. We're talking about them just getting access to weapons. And like, the number of felons, fun fact, felons are not allowed to own firearms in general. That get caught with weapons, I mean, it's very high.
Mm-hmm.
Like, typically the people who get out or are felons then just kind of get back into the game, like, they're going to acquire a firearm somehow.
that's through
I-
like known connections though, because they came
It's-
back to that same gang.
So, I mean, I guess we're making a lot of assumptions throughout this discussion,
Oh,
because
yeah.
we can in no way know what any of these people, how they acquired the guns, how these people deal with dealing guns and all these things. I think we're diving too deep into the weeds and discussing things that none of us have any idea what we're talking about.
So
Let's kind of bring it back towards,
so I just want to know, with what you just said, we were like, oh, but these people get out and they're able to gain access to guns back. So again,
Mhm.
is it, you think that people should just be able to have guns because it's too far gone? There's nothing can be done. Like, felons aren't supposed to have them; they still have them. Or like, where are you
I don't
standing on
think
that?
there, personally, I don't know that there's a going back from where we've gone. Am I saying that the way that America ended up now, or what did we find? It was 1.2 something
No,
guns
100
per person.
120.5 guns per 100 people. So
So yeah, what I
Yeah.
said. The fact of the matter is that, like, if we hadn't developed to this point where we have that surplus of weapons, maybe, the changes could be made. And I'm not opposed to that. I don't want these bad things to happen, things like that. Like, I really don't. I mean, I'm of the view that if they said, hey, we're going to put restrictions on certain types of weapons and things like that, like, I'm not going to be upset about it. Like, I enjoy them. I have them for self-defense. They're not my life. They're not, my personality, but we're at the point now where there is no going back. Like, I just don't see, like, the thing you got to understand is that it's not like they're going to be able to go to door and every single person is going to be like, yes sir, here is all of the guns that you have, on file for me. Like, it's just not going to happen. People are not going to do that. If they try that, there's going to be an excessive amount of violence from certain parts of the population. And again, I think you will get a very small percentage of the actual guns back if you've got the ATF going door to door.
Well, I think
So
we'll
then
get a
they're still
lot of
out
them
there.
back. I just don't. I think there will be a lot we don't get, but I think the idea that like nobody will give them up is also like, well, people will give
I
them
don't
up,
think
or people
nobody.
will take
I
them.
mean, I'm not saying that nobody will do it, but the environment, the kind of the
The mindset.
the mindset and emotion of the country right now is extremely hot when it comes to this subject, and I just it's people are getting crazy out there, man, and I just think that any move to do something like that would be um just a step too far. So I just don't know that there is going back from where we are. And if they start saying, hey, you can't legally own or carry or do whatever firearms, we're at the point now where you're just handicapping the people, who have to live and work in this world.
So you're saying if they came up with rules now and they basically just grandfather other people's guns in, it would just be handicapping the people now?
Yes.
Because again, you think that everybody needs to have a gun to protect themselves, and if they don't, they're handicapped.
I think that if you want to be able to carry a firearm for protection, that you should.
I think that people should have the choice. Now I'm very much in the middle of this. I agree in the sense that there are, certain guns that people of the general population have no need to own. But at the same time, I do believe that people should have the choice that if they want to defend themselves, they should have that option.
So I guess, and my thought, I don't know, can people have their own tanks and stuff like that? Like, can you own your own tank? I guess you probably could at a point, because like, where does that end? People can have the right to defend themselves. So it's like you could have knives, you could have stabs, spears, right? But then it's like, oh no, you can have guns. It's like, oh, you can have guns to defend yourself. Well, I want a bomb. I want a bomb to defend myself. Somebody breaks in my house, I want it to
Bombs are
blow up.
illegal,
Right?
but
So
it's
I
illegal.
want a bomb to defend myself. Where's the next step? I want a tank to defend myself. I want a
Pretty
tank.
sure
Like,
owning an actual operational ready tank is probably legal.
yeah, but why? If the argument is you should be able to protect yourself, where do you get to decide my limitations to protect myself are? I want a tank.
Well, bro, I mean, if you're that pro Second Amendment, I don't know. Like, it's maybe you should be allowed to.
Well, the Second Amendment is stupid.
So let's talk about the Second Amendment. Do you think the forefathers intended the Second Amendment to
No.
be what it is now?
No.
Do you think with their time period and their mindset and the framing of our amendments to our Constitution that this is what they had in mind?
Not even close. They'd probably be like, "You guys are effed. Like, what are you doing?"
I don't think.
What do you think they intended?
I think at that point, some dudes with guns could stop other dudes with guns. They didn't have tanks. They didn't have planes
Steven,
and
the thing is that you
jets.
have to understand. So
It was militiamen, dude. That's all it was.
So the war, the global war on terrorism, the war in the Middle East that we've been fighting for 20 something years. How well armed do you think that those, aside from the initial invasion of Iraq and the Iraqi army and things like that, like say the past 5-10 years in fighting Afghanistan, how well armed do you think those guys are?
Better than I think most Americans are. They're funded
Better than most
by
Americans.
literal like organizations in other countries that are feeding them rocket launchers
Yeah,
and radars. And
Yeah, I was about to say,
But
we're
we're not talking about RPG. We're talking about tanks. We're talking about planes. We're talking about drone strikes. We're talking, like, how do they have those capabilities?
to the same extent as like the government? No,
Do they have any of those capabilities I just listed that you know?
probably.
You think they?
Do
have
I
those
know?
things?
No, but do I think they have some of them, or like radar to
Do you know
detect
what?
some of
Do you know
them?
what insurgent warfare is?
I mean, what we're just talking about.
So the way that the war in the Middle East has worked, and the way that groups like Al Qaeda, Taliban, everything has been able to grow at the rate that they have, and have such a stronghold on the population beyond the religious fervor.
And other than the terrain and the
So what they do is they embed themselves in the population, right? And their whole goal is to obviously attack you, do some damage to you, the invader. But their main goal is to elicit an over-exaggerated response, right? So you've got a patrol comes through, they get hit with an IED, some small arms fire, whatever. They know that they're in this village. In response, the enemy, the invader, they bomb the crap out of that village. Right? They may have only had 5 guys, in this insurgency in that village.
Yeah, and then because other people do it, then they recruit the people that were hurt by the
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not uncommon for these guys to embed themselves in machine gun positions and surround themselves with women and children as shields, so that when the people come and recover the bodies, they find that the invaders have killed all these people. Like this is how it's done. There's been several other groups throughout some European campaigns, the Middle East, other things that have done this. Not through superior firepower, not even through equal firepower, through a much smaller firepower. They're able to prolong and fight a war for an extreme amount of time. Certain groups in Ireland and other places like that, the way they did, they don't target. They're not shooting at a drone as it flies through the air. They're going to go find the family of the drone operator. They're going to go find the family of the generals, the family of the soldiers, stuff like that. That's what they're going to target. That's how they fight their war. I'm not saying that these things are good things. I'm just saying that the argument that give up your guns because they could just bomb your house, it's not how wars are fought.
Well, I think that's where we differ, is that I think if the United States actually wanted to just end that, it would have happened. We have every ability. We could easily have done it.
All right,
it's
so
just the
we
whole
could
like
commit
taking people
some
out
of
or
the most
not.
horrendous war crimes of all time. Yes. But what happens when you do that?
Well, we're
That's
going
just
to
the
that.
insurgency on a international level.
Well, basically what you're saying is like, oh, if you do tyrannical things, we need to use our weapons. But if like the government went tyrannical, like full tyrannical, bro, then you're done. Like you're not competing
that's the
against the U.S.
thing.
government if they just decide you're not. It's just not.
That's your personal belief, but people have been doing it for a very, very long time. People have been doing
And my personal belief is that we could have stopped what was going on in Afghanistan.
If you
we
nuked
wanted
Afghanistan and killed every man, woman, and child, yes, you could have ended the war. If that's how you want to play out history, like that's the way you can do it. But we don't do things like that. You know what America's not going to do is nuke in entire cities to try and weed out a couple of guys. But those couple of guys can do a lot of damage. I'm not saying that any of these things are good things. I'm just saying that, like,
You think
I've
that
been
the
in the shoes-
population of the states can like fight the U.S. government?
What I'm just saying, I'm not saying that anyone can or should or any of those things. What I'm saying is that I have spoken a lot of the same arguments that you're saying now, and I've realized that I didn't know enough. I did the research and I realized that, okay, these things exist. The historical precedents have been set. And it's I just wanted to make sure that you have a full picture of what all of this actually means. I don't want us to speak on here and not have the full picture.
Okay, so the question goes to you then. Do you think the Second Amendment and the forefathers who wrote it, do you think they intended for what we have now going on and the weapons that we have now? Do you think do you think they would still extend out the Second Amendment to all Americans if they knew the weapons that we have now?
I don't think there's any evidence that they wouldn't. I think it was left vague, and I don't think there's enough information to kind of say either way or the other.
I mean, I would say the one thing we do know is that they can't predict the future, and they didn't know that there was going to be what we have.
Yeah, 100%.
So we're basing off of something that was made hundreds of years ago in a totally different environment. Wars were fought differently. The weapons were different, right? You're talking freaking muskets, got powder lined up across from each other. Yeah, because then, dude, people could literally just take back their countries,
bro. They missed.
Like the states could just, I mean, any city could just take back what they wanted. They could just fight and be like, okay, cool, we're on even grounds. You're no better than I am. Maybe some more training, but like, that's it. You got a cool jersey. But that's it. That's all you got.
Well, no, I mean,
now we're talking about there's no
weapons
level. The thing is, so again, with your insurgent argument, when it comes to that,
that's how a lot of the revolution was fought, brother. Like fighting in the trees, ambushes and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, they didn't have thermal vision, drones that could do it. What I'm saying is, if the states wanted to, I'm not talking about nukes. We could send out drone armies, and literally just like take out insurgent camps in the United States. Like, you can't tell me we couldn't. We
Well, you could,
100%
but it just doesn't
could.
work like that.
But it
I'm sorry,
it
like
could.
they don't go up and they're like, okay, here's our camp. Let us put up the sign. Okay, insurgent camp. There, the sign's up. Hopefully, a drone doesn't see it.
I feel like
They embed themselves in the
there's
population.
a lot
we had
of
this discussion already.
there's a lot of lack of believing in what the capabilities of the government, the technology we have. If
I
it
think
came
there
to
is
that,
an over. What's the word I'm looking for? Whatever the opposite of what you just said was. There is too much faith in the capabilities of the government.
against random people with guns.
Correct.
I don't know if this is a question you can answer.
If you think
but
it's
then
if you think it's
at
random
what point,
people or well-trained people.
At what point do you think the whole Second Amendment went out the window?
What do you mean?
Like, at
Like-
what stage of technological evolution?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know when this stuff happened. I'm not an expert in guns.
Speaking on the government, and I know we're kind of jumping off a little bit here, but speaking on the government and what they can and cannot do or will do, this in May 13, 1985, after a long standoff, Philadelphia municipal authorities dropped a bomb on a residential house that was by a movement called Move. It was an African American movement, and this was during a lot of the racial stuff that was going on, and they were fighting for independence, equality, sustainability, all that stuff. But they were armed, trying to do so. The government dropped a bomb from a helicopter on them in a residential neighborhood.
They
Yeah.
did, in fact, and then it continued to burn, and they didn't put the fire out and kill a lot
Nope.
of people.
They let
Yeah.
it. They let it go.
But that's so.
That's
my-
a very different situation.
Yeah, to my point again, because he's talking about insurgent. He's not talking about how to squash something. You know where it's at. It's whatever.
Yeah.
I just feel like the arguments against, like, oh well, they wouldn't do this and they wouldn't do that. It's like, no, if this is what it came to, if the decision was we win this no matter the cost without nukes, they still win.
I don't put anything past the government either way.
That's what I'm saying. Like, even without nukes, there's no shot. And this the comment that you had made about, like, are they highly trained? 90% of people out there with guns, random stat,
Well, so here's the thing: is
aren't highly trained. They're people with guns.
you're imagining that every person who owns gun is the person like guys like me are, or whatever, are the ones that are going to be fighting this. Not former military, not guys who spend every day training for shit like this and preparing for stuff like that, for the past 20 years. Like,
They have anti-artillery. They got, like,
they could.
stuff for drones. They got
If other
like-
people are getting, you can make this stuff. But the thing is that, again, you are just putting an extreme amount of faith in the government and the capabilities they have. Yes, they have those things, but until the government says, "Hey, we're just going to start free firing on anybody we think is a bad guy," that's when things change. So,
All
Okay,
right. So
that's the
let's talk
Second
about
Amendment
another.
part. Yeah.
So let's talk about another question here. Should guns be harder to own?
Yes.
After speaking about the Second Amendment.
Hard enough,
I-
people can't have them.
I'm
Well,
in
let's-
favor.
So Steven, just yes or no question. If it were up to you, would you ban guns for the general population?
Yeah.
But
I
will
would
you
think-
settle? Will you settle for just stricter gun control?
Oh, 100%. Anything that's moving us in the direction of it, I'm for it. I think military can have guns. Law enforcement, I could hear some discussions on either side. If they didn't have to worry about as many guns out there, I could definitely, maybe if there was just the one or two, like a SWAT team that has, stuff like that, like there could be a rebuilding of that if that was the case. But like everyday citizens just going out and loading up, nah. Anything that gets us closer to that, I'm for.
All right, so I think we can all agree that the gun should be a little harder for just anyone to get a hold of.
Sean?
Uh,
Yeah, so one thing I'm in favor of is requiring training. So just as on my own experience, and I think anyone who's been to a gun range more than a couple of times has probably had this experience. I went to a range. I'll tell you two different situations. I had two older gentlemen in the range with me, and I'm watching them shoot at targets that are 5 yards away. And they're not hitting a damn thing. They have no idea what they're doing. They are pointing and pulling the trigger. I mean, it is just nowhere close to the target. They're not even hitting the paper at times, and I'm just, their stance is weird. Like everything about it is just off. And I'm just like, well, damn, that's terrifying. If that guy ever has to use his gun, he's not, the only thing he's hitting is the neighbor's cat. Like that's wild, man. Like, and then I go to, to a different range, and these guys bought. I mean, this is just a guy with the, this is an older guy. He's got, some older pistol. I think one of the other guys had a revolver, whatever. So then I go to different range. It's a different group of guys, younger guys, and they spent some money, baby. I mean, they've got everything's new in box. They're pulling out. They got rifles, handguns, all this stuff, and they're holding guns up and just unloading. Just bah, 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 doing everything they can, not hitting a damn thing. I mean, they might hit the target every once in a while, but they don't even have sights on the rifle. Like there's just nothing on it to say, and they're just having a ball, loving life. But boy, they're not going to be effective in any way if they ever have to use it.
Those are the people that scare me.
And it is terrifying. Like I imagine
Those people don't scare me at all.
Oh, absolutely, they terrify me because those are the guys.
Those aren't the people going out there shooting people. You're talking about accidents.
Bro,
I'm talking about people shooting people, and you're talking about accidents.
So the things that you're talking about here is mass shootings.
No, you're just going across. Like Chris asked a question, Sean. He asked a question, and you're talking about people needing training to be better at it. Not should they be harder to get.
Point instead of interrupting me. So what I'm trying to say is that requiring people to get training or have some proof of training or competency is I guess a good word for it, is something I'm not against. I think that the prospect of people carrying around weapons, concealed carry or open carry, however, with the intent to use them when they feel threatened, but having no real skill with using them, is a really bad place to be.
Should they be harder to get?
I mean, that's my answer to the question.
That's not an answer to the question.
It is an answer to the question. I think having proof of some form of competency, that makes it harder to get, does it not?
So the people who buy the guns completely normal and go shoot, people and do these crimes should be better trained. That's the proof that they should have, is that they were trained better on how to shoot and use those weapons. Shouldn't be any harder for them to get, but they need to show that they can use it.
So I do think guns should be harder to get. There should be more of a background check, mental background check, that kind of thing. And I know that the agencies that do all this stuff they're probably overrun. And I know I know people that are trying to get like silencers and stuff like that, and so they're having to wait years to get through that stuff. Like they're just so backed up.
Well, so those are two different, like,
I know it's ATF and all that, but just there should be more involvement with I guess a mental aspect of it. You shouldn't, I don't know. It shouldn't be as easy as just, hey, here's some paperwork. I haven't committed any past crimes. All right, here you go.
Here's my thing with like a mental check, right? How far are we willing to go for that? Because if we're just talking, they're going to look in your background, see if you've ever had any mental issues, see if you've ever seen a therapist or something. That's one thing, because
it's also invasion of your medical rights.
Yeah, just for an example. When I turned 18, that's when I was depressed. I wasn't in the best state of mind. I'd never seen a therapist. If I went to buy a gun, if they were doing some kind of background checks, I would have seen that it was clean. I was of a perfect state of mind. I could buy a gun. So then is this something where they want like proof that you are in a good mental state? Like if you want to buy a gun, like if you go to a store and say, I want to buy this gun, are they going to say, all right, you need to go see a psychiatrist or something like that, and we want proof that you're good before we can sell you this?
I'd like stuff like that.
Something to that effect.
I would be down. Like, you gotta go through X number of sessions. Could people still get through the system? Could people?
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah, people are gonna slide right
yeah.
through.
But if it's even freaking 10 less people out there who are dangerous with guns, let's effing go. Like, let's do it. I think that's the problem, is people are so anti going black or white that they're willing to let everything go for the sake of not going to one side. Who cares how many kids die? How many people get shot up? How many, like, who cares? Because we cannot make it black and white enough. Lives are not black and white enough. The value of somebody, the danger is not black and white enough. So screw it. If you have to go through a freaking 10-week evaluation to own a gun, go through it. Right?
Yeah.
Like, do it. How many? So, and the other thing is, so people are like, oh, you can't make them expensive because then you're like not letting the lower class people protect themselves, whatever. I don't know how many super ultra rich people go around shooting schools up. So, like, that doesn't bother me either. But again, I'm an extremist. Take the guns away. So, like, whatever. But just most of the excuses and the reasonings are just like, they're so bad to me, man. And they don't take into account so many other things. I want to know how many people out there, because I know what happens. I'm sure it's happened. There's been stories, right? How many crimes were stopped and prevented because of those self-defense guns versus the number of lives that are lost because of the people having them? Something tells me it's not close.
Yeah, so
I don't know. It doesn't get as much coverage.
It doesn't.
So
it doesn't.
I was looking
I
up
agree.
let's see. I was looking up rates on that, and I'll have to find it, and we'll quote it under the show. But it was saying that people there were less there were less active shooters that were stopped by firearms than there were unarmed civilians just trampling a person who was doing it. So the good guys with guns in an active shooter situation, I don't know about every situation, but in active shooter situations, they were not stopped. They were stopped more by civilians, unarmed, trying to trample these people versus a good guy with a gun. Four times more, in fact.
Well, that's just probably, that's just simple math, right? There's more people without guns than there are people with guns. So, and it's kind of hard to make data points out of this, because if you stop somebody who's potentially going to be a mass shooter, how do you know
how many lives did you save? Right.
I mean, you had the gentleman, it was a couple weeks ago. Somebody came out of the bathroom with I believe an AR. Got a couple shots off before a young gentleman took him out from 40 yards with a handgun.
Yeah.
Like, he's in a crowded food court at a mall. Who knows how many people he was going to kill? So like, it's kind of hard to, you can't really put hard numbers on that because you can't see the future. There's no alternate timelines that we can look at.
But this is where, to negate hard numbers, you're using hypothetical numbers.
I actually found something here. From 2000 to 2021, researchers studied 464 attacks and found civilians stopped attackers before police arrived on 73 occasions. In the vast majority of those cases, being 67%, bystanders subdued the assailant using physical force. An armed civilian stopped attacks by shooting the suspect in 24 of the 464 attacks recorded.
I think, to Sean's point on this, not as many people own guns. So that is something where it's hard, because it's like, if they included, so out of 400 or something, 24 were stopped by guns, but 200 of them had guns, then you could be like, okay, they're not using them or not, whatever. But we don't know how many other guns there were. If those were the only 24 people with guns, that's 24 out of 24, right? Like, that's solid.
I guess this is also, we don't know where these attacks took place.
Mm-hmm. So I'm not trying to negate. Like, I think that's a valid argument of, well, we don't know how many of them had them or whatever. But then it's like, okay, well, then do you just arm everybody? Like, everybody should have a gun. If you don't have a gun, then, like, not good. Which some people think so. Some people are like, give everybody a gun, everybody's got a fair shot, let him go.
Like, once a baby can lift his arms to hold a gun, he should get one.
Give him a gun.
Hey, every time somebody robs somebody, you're going to be taking 10 steps and shooting. So, hey, are you willing to risk your life for that person's wallet? Because they have a gun.
Yeah.
So
that's another argument, is everybody has a gun.
You know what the saying is, an armed society is a polite society. It's like, if you know everybody's carrying, are you that ballsy?
Well, I just think about how many people would pull that trigger off of arguments and off of,
It happens
oh,
all the time.
I think there was hostility. I think there was, well, exactly, happens all the time. People
Yeah.
are getting shot because they have guns and they got a little upset at an argument.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's happening.
in a perfect world in which guns were accessible, only the people who were responsible would own them. But we don't live in a perfect world.
See, there's
I
that
mean-
responsibility argument. What is responsibility? Only ever using the gun for the at most perfect situation? Is that
And I mean, and we know at least one person who got shot because some other kid got mad, went home, and grabbed his dad's gun.
mm-hmm.
Do we?
You talking about at the skate park?
Yeah.
Down at
Yeah.
You-
that-
you
I-
So
probably
it's
don't
not,
know
it's not always people that own their own guns.
yeah.
Yeah, I know it's happened here a lot recently with road rage here in our own area.
There's
It's
been a
happened
lot of
quite-
people shooting on the interstate.
Yes, yeah. So just today, I went to get over in front of somebody while driving back from my sister-in-law's house. Got in front of somebody. They had plenty of room, but they honked, and I was like, "Why are you honking? You had plenty of space." So kept driving. They got in the left lane. I was in the right lane. I went to look at her. Wife's like, "Do not look at them, please." She's like, "I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get shot. I don't want our baby to get shot. Just don't look over at them." And because she just feared that retaliation, she feared violence because of that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
follow idiots in cars on Reddit, and there's been a large uptick of people recording other people shooting out of their car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's I mean, during the pandemic, ownership skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, that's
you've
because
got a
everybody
lot.
thought they were coming for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like everybody, and it's not even a certain type of people. Like, I go to the shooting range, and I mean, you've got every type of person you could imagine in that place. Like, from young girls to old dudes firing a gun for the first time. Like, it's everybody, whole families coming in. You know, I mean, they've got. Anyway, so it's everybody's kind of getting into it, and
I think it's a snowball effect. I think fear makes people want to go out and get one because they think everybody else has one, and I need to be able to protect myself because I know they have one, and everybody's just keeping that same mindset. And I know when I went to go look at, it's really bad. Wifey, I told wifey I was going to go pick up some milk, and I almost came back with a handgun. Uh, but
he met that guy. The guy we
Yeah.
were talking about with the jacket. And he opened his, he's
It
out
probably
there
would have
at
been that
7-Eleven.
easy. It probably would have
You
been
want
that
Ben's
easy.
gun?
Could just
Hey,
said, I came for milk, but I want a gun. Can I have one? They'd be like, sure, dude, you want 3? They probably just gave it to you.
Khajiit
I had-
has
I had
guns
the
if you got coin.
I had the paperwork filled out. I had the paperwork filled out, but
Yeah.
it was
It'd be-
during the time period when there was a lot of violence going on against Asian and Pacific Islander. I don't know what was going on at that point in time, but there was a lot of violence going on towards that community.
I think it was when
And-
COVID first started.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
it was at the start of COVID.
Anyone
Yeah.
Asian for COVID.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so there was 3 or 4 students, Virginia Tech students, who were in there, and they were looking around and trying to ask which gun is best for personal protection, which gun should I try out, because they were going to go to the range and try some out and then look at purchasing. So I do think the fear factor pushes a lot of people to own because they fear everybody else with a gun.
Well, that's kind of when we talk about banning guns to try and prevent mass shootings, things like that. It's like, but gun violence is more than just mass shootings, and so you're, possibly damning all of the other people who could potentially defend themselves to prevent some other things. When, I mean,
But
we
that's
don't know
under
that it
the
would work
assumption
anyways.
that those people, like, only the bad guys keep their guns and all the good guys lose their guns. Like, that's under that assumption that those people couldn't protect themselves because they don't have guns anymore. But like,
But I mean, if you've got these young people going and buying guns for the first time and they can no longer do that, and yet, I mean, you're not going to get. I wouldn't expect you to get more than maybe even a fifth of the guns off the street if you decide to ban them on. Just do a full on ban.
Yeah, most people who own them are very staunch. There's not a very large gray area for people who own guns. They're either very pro Second Amendment, or there are some casual owners who are like, sure, take them back. I had it. I thought it was cool. I don't really use it. But most people are the ones you're going to see stickers on the truck. They're going to have to come and take it hat. Yeah, they're very much if you're coming to get it, we're going to go down to fighting.
Yeah.
So,
Let them
and they're
go.
going to be like, I told you this was happening. I told you, and I bought my gun for this reason. Here they are coming to get it. So I do think they're going to be that would be a very big backlash. But
Just give them Texas, man. Just give them Texas.
so here's a question. Open carry is allowed in Virginia. You actually have to get a license to conceal carry. Do you guys think open carry versus concealed carry is a good idea? And I know, Stephen, no guns are acceptable in your mind.
You guys
No carry.
you three have this discussion amongst yourselves right now because
I don't
people don't
think
need
that
to
it
be
makes a
walking around
difference.
showing them off. Just you see this thing.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I don't think it makes a difference either.
I don't like open carry. I'm of the view like, yes, I carry a firearm with me at all times, but I don't want anyone else to know that, and I don't want to make anyone else uncomfortable. I know a lot of people are uncomfortable around guns. So you know, I don't want to go around showing it off and freaking people out. Like, and the fact of the matter is that, like, if you said, oh, everyone has to open carry, I'm sorry, but the guy tucking, the 9 in his waistband does not care. He just doesn't. So, like, it's one of those things that, like, you have to have a license to do it in Virginia. That's mostly to protect cops or stuff like that. Like, they're the ones who should be most concerned with people concealed carrying. But in the end, like, the people who want to do it are going to do it whether it's illegal or not. And I'm just not a big fan of open carry. I mean, personally, I wouldn't do it. On my own property, I would. It's more comfortable if I'm, had land and I was out on that land and I want to have a revolver on both hips because I'm a cowboy. Then I'd do that. But, like, I'm not gonna walk around Walmart, with the the 44 on the hip. Like, it's not for me.
Wifey and I both took a concealed carry class, maybe like 12, 13 years ago. And in that class, the instructor had spoke about open carry, and he was like, it's very bad idea, obviously, to show everybody that you have a weapon, because if anything was to go down and that person comes in with a concealed weapon to scope the area and decide whether or not how they're going to take the joint.
You're going first.
You're the first
target.
You're the first target. Exactly. So
you better be a quick draw, brother.
Yeah. So it's never a good idea to walk around that, and also depending on how you have it holstered, you're adding another weapon to a scenario. If somebody walks up behind you, snatches it off the hip. All right, now I got you, and I got another weapon, and now let's go. And I own the scene. So,
or I mean, there's lots of videos of people who did not walk in there with a gun, see a gun, grab it, and now you've got that going on.
That too. That too. So, do we think Americans are obsessed with guns? And why do we think that is?
Some of them. Because
I think as a country, America is obsessed with guns
compared to everybody else.
I think and that's what I mean. It's so blatant in the numbers where it's just like the gun crime here versus elsewhere, and people just ignore it because they're like, well, we can't take the guns away. We could, but I think the reason that some people are obsessed, so this kind of ties into maybe one of the other points, is that all people who are good, and I'm doing air quotes for anybody listening, good gun owners think that everybody or most people are also good gun owners, or that like everybody is the same as them. Everything has to be based on what's good for that individual person and not what's good for maybe like society as a whole. Again, and every episode we've talked about, I am much more of a greater good person. I'm, maybe I'm too, what is it? Is that socialism? Who knows? Like, I'm just very much like, no, like if it's going to stop a school from getting shot up, I don't care about your gun. I don't. And you shouldn't either. And the fact that people put that above it is beyond me. If I owned a gun and I knew that me giving up my gun meant 23 kids were going home, I'd give up my gun. And other people are like, no, absolutely not. Because what if somebody tries to shoot me? And I just think that's beyond me.
In North Carolina, they're putting guns in the schools.
Yeah. I think at this point you have to. I hate that, but at this point, there should be like 2 or 3 military personnel at every school the entire time that's got kids in it. That's the state we're in because let's go guns.
But even that isn't really helping because we had armed officers at some of these other school shootings. They ran.
No, I'm talking about
No,
3, 4
you need
armed
like,
military personnel ready to literally take out anybody who starts shooting.
you need like legit like hard dogs, not like, freaking rent-a-cops who, are just sitting on their phone.
Yeah, we're not talking about like school security officers like we've had when we were in high school, where nothing was. No, I'm talking straight up armed military personnel. Like the U.S. government is going to have to, or state
the
militia,
new agency,
whatever. Yeah, like maybe you start it up. Like I don't care, but that's at this point you have to. This whole thing where we can put up metal detectors, freaking put military personnel in there, like all of it. I don't know why we're not at this point. If we're not going to give up the guns, like then arm our schools.
So in North Carolina, are they putting? Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Are they putting in like actually trained armed individuals into these schools? Or are they just saying like, hey, here's a couple guns. Hopefully you guys can do something if shit goes down.
They are putting trained officers that know how to use the weapon. They're putting AR-15s in these schools, so they'll have equal firepower to whatever's going to be coming at them. And they're going to be in gun safes that are going to be under lock and key, so kids can't just walk up and be like, "Oh, look what I found." They're in a very specific area known to certain people and limited key access, and of course, trained individuals that would have it. So, and it's only one county; it's not all of this state. One county has taken this precaution as, like you said, they felt they couldn't do anything else. So he said, hey, I'm going to put people in place to make sure limited casualties, if any, have to happen. When I was in Germany, it was during Desert Storm, Desert Shield. So we were in a military base overseas. We did have armed guards there for that. And that was the weirdest thing, walking down the hallway and seeing a guy in an army uniform with an M4 at the end of the hall. Very, very weird, but that was my reality for
probably be what America looks like here in a couple of years. If it's not, then I'll be mind blown. Like legitimately. I mean, you have to. Like you have to. Like how many more people are going to walk into schools and kill a bunch of elementary school kids before we're like, maybe we should put military in there. Maybe we should do that.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely asinine, but
yeah.
Let everybody keep their guns.
So back to your point with the good guys with guns type of thing. So do you think we have a hero complex where we're all going to walk around? I'm going to be the guy. I'm going to be the guy that's going to save the day. I'm waiting for that opportunity. Let somebody walk up into 7-Eleven. I can't wait to use my 9mm. Please come at me, bro. Yeah, please come at me, bro. I've been waiting for this.
I think it is 2. I think one is your person who's looking for it. Like they're a lunatic. Like they're literally somebody who shouldn't have a gun and they have a gun. And then you have the other people who act like that's why, but they would never do anything. They would be running from the gun. They would be going. I think that makes those 2, like if you're splitting it into thirds, that's that. And then there's a third of people who I think honestly with a gun in their hand in a situation would step up to the task. But I think a large portion are people who are they shouldn't have guns. They're literally crazy people with weapons. And I think the other portion are people who would go in the opposite direction. They have guns for self-defense, and when they say self, they mean it. They mean it. They're not helping anybody else.
Myself.
Yeah, they're
only myself.
And with the whole idea of self-defense, that should be totally and utterly acceptable. They don't need to help anybody else. That weapon is for self-defense. Yeah, exactly. So they don't. That's not what that's for. That's there for them and them only.
So when do you guys think this happened? This obsession with guns for America? Like there had to been some point and we were like, you know what? I think we all need to have a gun.
At a point, it was legitimately the Second Amendment. What if Britain comes back? What if they would ever or what if, in general, because of course the Second Amendment is to protect against your own government, whatever. But if, what if something changes, right? We're still wary of government. We just established a new one. Sure, for a while, it's probably like that. At some point, it swapped to just like, nah, man, we just really like having guns. Like, this is cool,
Yeah.
Like, I don't think anybody, people do have it, I guess. Shouldn't say that. I don't know how many people are honestly thinking, like, I have my guns in case the government comes for me. You
Oh,
know,
I know some
like
of those people.
yeah. No, they're out there, but I don't even know if it's the majority of people who own guns. I wouldn't say that majority of people who own guns are like thinking the government's coming to take my land and sell me
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
aliens, you know.
No.
And yes, I think gun owners are mostly conspiracy theorists.
That's interesting.
Well, here
Not
you go.
not
Here's
all
a
of them, but
here's a here's a little bit about that. So I had heard this little tidbit, and this guy said, um, "If you're not a conspiracy theorist, you're the crazy one." He's like, "If
Mhm.
you think the government is telling you the truth 100% of the time, you're lying to yourself."
I've
And
never once
he said, "I have kids. I run my house, and I lie to everybody in my house, specifically my kids."
I would
So-
never at any point in my life have said I think the government is telling us everything. I also don't think that they're like there's these constant meetings of like how can we lie to everyone today? Like I just really want to lie to everybody today. I just really want to like I don't think that's the case either. You know what's really crazy to me on this subject is again this just goes to show you my brother and I grew up in the same house, the same mom and the same dad, and he turned into a right-wing extremist.
Did I?
A right-wing extremist.
Holy shit. I
I'm
don't know
totally
that you
kidding.
could further.
I'm kidding about that, but it's
Wow.
just on the whole guns thing. Clearly, he's
Uh,
on the other side of the
You
spectrum.
know what the
there.
saying is?
We're just
if
very
you go-
different.
If you go far enough left, you get your guns back.
Yeah. I mean, if you go
I-
far
and
enough
I-
right, I'm sure you get something too. I'm just in general just saying, like it's
I do think that if we're gonna talk about the general population of who has guns, um, I don't think it's any one particular group. I think the media portrays it that way,
Mhm.
but I definitely know that it's not that way. So when we had a lot of gun rights activists going on here in our own state of Virginia, there were a lot of groups who marched safely with weapons in Richmond, and there were a lot of people who were, we're gays with guns, we're blacks with guns,
It's
everybo-
not
that-
all
that- that was
ex-military wannabe
exactly.
like that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Good
So
old
it
boys.
was and it was funny to see all those groups come together and march for unity under the umbrella of guns, which normally you probably see them somewhere else and they'd be like, "Hey, I don't like you because you're this, or I don't like you because you're that." But combined together, they were like, "Hey, I don't like you.
Guns are
You don't
the
like
great-
me, but please don't take our guns. We'll stand together for this."
With
Guns
our
are the
powers
great
combined.
unifier.
But if it was anything anti-NRA or if it was some other movement, those are paid actors. Those are paid actors if it's any
yes.
other movement.
Don't be
Yes.
talking about Alex Jones on this
I was about to say, you want to talk about Alex Jones for a minute?
They're all paid.
Oh
It's
my
all
gosh.
set up, dude. It's all from some dude. What is George? What's his name? When they all blame some dude named George.
Soros?
Yeah,
Soros.
everything's that guy behind the scenes paying people to like fake school shootings. I don't know, man. It's crazy.
Be
But I
careful.
agree with that. So I will say on that note that I don't, again, it was sarcasm when I said that all people who
Yeah,
own
yeah.
guns are conspiracy theorists, like
Yeah.
that's not, no. And I don't think, I recognize that they're not all rednecks. They're not all white. They're not all, want to be military. They're not all people who couldn't get in and decided that they're just going to live their life this way. But those are the worst ones, like it's not all of them, but like, if you ask me, dude, like,
Oh man.
John the Third over there with the camos on just really needs
John the
to
Third.
needs to settle on down. It's my take.
Oh gosh. All right. So, do you guys think the good guys with guns do enough to outweigh the negative? And I think
No,
we all
we
know
kinda-
where
we did.
Steven's
Yeah, I think
going.
we kind of
We,
talked about
we
this.
talked about this earlier when it came up, and no, because again, you have to give hard numbers versus hypothetical numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely
No.
needs to be more data when it comes to that.
No, please, no more data. Like we don't
We need
want
more
more data.
data.
We don't
No,
need more
it's not
data.
more people.
Yeah,
No,
like-
evaluation of past things that have happened, and like you said, look at the scenarios of when were guns present, who had the guns, and then out of that situation, then we get the statistics. But
yeah.
like you said, that they don't show that in the statistics, so it's really hard to base.
Well, even
those.
then you couldn't, because Sean's point earlier was you can't gauge it because you don't know how many lives, for instance, got saved when that guy took out the bad guy. So you can't compare those numbers. Maybe he would have killed 50. We saved 50 lives. That then counteracts the 50 people who died in the other, And it's like you can't because that's hypothetical.
Well, my question would have been in those situations where was a gun used to stop a bad guy? Not how many lives would be saved, but how many crimes were stopped by two civilians, one being bad, one being good? How many times did a gun help stop that bad guy from doing whatever he was doing versus a
Mhm.
civilian unarmed stopping somebody?
Yeah.
Or,
Or a situation
you
where
know,
nothing got stopped until like police
yeah,
showed up or something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. So that would be my question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's again, it's like you said, it's one of those things where like it's just an argument of potentials. Um, I'm not arguing that. I don't want anyone to think that I'm completely a Second Amendment purist. Like I'm not. I'm like I've said before. I'm in favor of having training and competency. I am open to some stricter gun laws. Like I said at the beginning of this, if they said, "Hey, we're going to ban this type of gun because we want to prevent more school shootings," it's not going to hurt my feelings. I don't think that it is going to solve the root of the issue. I don't think that it's going to solve the issues. Is it going to make it harder to do? I think people will find a way. You could build the majority of a gun out of Legos these days and put several magazines through it before it melts. Like there are ways around all of these things. There are conflicts raging right now where they're in Myanmar and places like that where they are using 3D printed weapons to fight against, the government. To go back to our discussion earlier, like we have guys using $40 radio systems from China and guns they printed off the internet to fight against the government. So like all of these things will continue to happen. When someone wants to do something terrible, they will find a way. But I will not argue that they're going to be at least somewhat less successful, right? Like if they have a lower magazine capacity and all these things, these laws already exist in some places. It doesn't mean they will be effective. So just like good guys having gun isn't a guarantee that they'll stop someone, putting in laws will not guarantee that it will stop someone either. We have a terrible mental health issue and crisis in this country. There are some ways that people have come up to try and address these things. Red flag laws, where essentially, if someone reports and says, "Sean, he's been acting really weird. He's been posting stuff online. I know he owns a bunch of guns. I'm just worried he's going to hurt somebody." The police will come out, or FBI, whoever the is kind of dubbed to handle that investigation will come out. Depending on the law, like they'll either take your guns then or they'll start an investigation, whether or not you are a threat to yourself or others. They will then take them. You will get counseling help that you're needed, and if deemed safe, they will be returned to you. A lot of people, are in favor of that. They think it's a step in the right direction. Even people who are staunchly anti-gun are like, well, at least that's something. There are a lot of people who are against it for fear that it'll be used against people.
I can see that.
Say your ex-wife, or say ex-husband, right? You got a crazy ass ex-husband. He calls and you've got a gun for self-defense, and he says, "She's been threatening me. She's been doing these things, whatever." And they say, "Hey, we're gonna take your guns pending an investigation." Well, now he knows you're unarmed, right? These things happen. There was a gentleman in California who was a journalist who was investigating some of the people involved in January 6th insurrection, and had gotten some people in trouble by like his journalism. He had like, "Oh, that's this guy," like called them out, like doing these things. Well, they called because of California's red flag laws. His guns are taken away because of false claims, and those people then threatened him. He was getting like message after message after anonymous message of death threats, and we know where you sleep, we know your kids are in the house, and so people will use these laws for bad things. Now, do I think, like anything, right? Like, does that outweigh the good potential? No. So again, this is something I'm not 100% against. I don't think that anyone has an answer that's going to fix all of these issues.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you start talking about mental health. If we gave an outlet and didn't make it so taboo and it was more normalized, So when somebody had an issue with somebody, and a lot of these school shootings with young people, um, even some of the documentaries I watch, when something happens to a kid, it is the end of the world for them. They don't look at, oh, I'm gonna be 30, and that would be a drop in the hat. For
Yeah.
kids, that is life.
We've
That is
mentioned that a
it.
lot on this show
Yeah,
where
Yeah.
we look back and go, oh, that time we thought that was the worst thing that would ever happen to us.
exactly.
And now we're
So
old and it's terrible.
yeah, so kids take it to the extreme when those type of situations happen. So to get proper help for them at a younger age, or even maybe sending all the kids to a counselor and letting them rotate through during those school weeks starting at elementary school, getting them used to talking to somebody, getting those issues out. And so we normalize it going up through grades. And it gets to the point where you're like, hey, I have an issue. I've been talking to my school counselor since I was 3, mandatory, even if I didn't have an issue, but I know I have somebody I can talk to about these things. Maybe that would help. And like I said, it's not a guaranteed answer, but mental health, like you said, is a problem in this country. There's not enough facilities. It's not affordable. And it's still taboo. Oh, they've got mental illness. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have issues.
I
So
think the red flag thing is a good idea. I think there can be improvements, clearly, as you saw. You know, maybe you need proof, maybe you need like something like that. I think, you know, a lot of what you just said is what I've been arguing for this entire time. And the points that you made about how much like does it outweigh the good? Like that's what I'm asking for. Do I want all guns gone? Yes. Do I think that we can actually remove all guns? No. But is making them harder to get worth the lives? Yes. Do I think that the more difficult, the less those people who snap in that moment and make that bad decision are to do it? I believe so. I think friction stops action. It is seen throughout everything. Everything. The harder it is to do something, the less likely people are to do it. Are there people who will always be driven? Yes. It's the same people who start businesses, right? Like the same people who go through the hard things because they will do it. That's not everybody. Not every school shooter is this I'm driven. I'm going to make this happen, right? Like that's not the case. If anything, a lot of the time if it's even remotely hard, that's it, man. It's all going to be in their head. Maybe they do something else that's bad. Maybe they commit suicide. Maybe they do one of these other things. And not that
But
we want that to happen, but friction will stop it. And so making it more difficult, however we can, is a good thing. If it saves, so again, it goes back to how many like what price of life do you put on making something more difficult? Is one life saved worth it? Or does it have to be, well, we think it could save 100 or we could save 500? It has to be able to save 10,000 before we're willing to implement this stricter policy. For me, it's one because I don't care, right? I don't want guns. But maybe for you, 10 people have to die first, you know, like wherever your line is. But at a point, you are choosing a line based on lives.
no, I don't think it's that easy of a choice. I think that I'm not the only one making this choice. My personal decision does not affect the landscape. And so instead of trying, and this is where a lot of this stuff fails and gets muddled, and why we've ended up in the situation we're at, where everyone's drawn these hard lines in the sand, is instead of trying to find a medium, everyone kind of gets on this side where it's Second Amendment absolutist to 100% banning guns. And what you have in the middle somewhere is where we should be talking about what we can do to kind of mitigate the situation we have in this country with gun violence, ways that we can help in whatever way. I'm not a professional, in this field of trying to pass law and figure out, how to solve these issues. But the fact of the matter is that like we have to deal with not just me and you talking and the four of us, or even the people in the city. We have to talk about the entire country, the entire nation. And that's a lot of people to try and get on one page, and you're not going to do that. You need to find something in the middle. And we've just created a political climate where that is not possible.
But I'm calling for the middle. That's what I'm calling for. I want this. I know what you're saying is accurate, so I'm willing to take this. The problem is that everybody on this side would accept anything that gets us closer to that, and everybody on this side doesn't want to budge. Right? Like it's no, no, no. These people
Well,
are
because
like,
they
dude, we'll take
fear-
a little bit. We'll just take
what
a little
they're
bit. And they're
fearing
like, no.
is the
One step leads to 100 steps. You take all of them.
Correct.
what they're
That's
fearing
what
is
they
that
fear.
like it's just going to be them losing it. And there's a lot of lobbying. There's a lot of stuff that gets in the way of meaningful conversation and stuff like that. I'm not an NRA member. I do not like them. Fuck them. You know, but like it's just a corrupt organization. They're also working on behalf of the Russians. But anyways, the
All right, we got the full conspiracy.
no, this is known fact. Like no,
No,
they
I'm
100%.
sure. I'm
They
sure
got
it's all good.
They got
It's just-
infiltrated. It was a part of the whole thing.
when you hear stuff like that, you've been touting guns, now you're talking about Russian conspiracies, bro. Like, shut it down. We're not
With the
posting this.
goddamn
one.
Russians.
Yeah,
You should all be worried.
I told you he
No.
was a right winger, dude. I was extremist. Now look at him.
Mm-mm-mm.
I just think earlier, so this is, and we don't need to go back through every point, but earlier when it came up and we were like, are you for harder restrictions? Your only response was better training. And now you're like, I'm up for if they did this, and I'm up for if they did that. I'm up for if they did that, which I'm open to you like thinking in your own head. Again, we get into battles and we start to stand a little bit more firmly in the sand. And then we afterwards go, actually, I wasn't that intense about that. I actually would give this and that.
No,
And
I definitely. So I had a point I wanted to make on the training thing, and I was not ready to have a full discussion, and then I just got
yeah, again,
not upset, but just a
it's-
little hot, I guess.
we're not trained debaters and argumenters. We're two people.
Yeah.
And so it's same thing that happened to me in the porn episode. I took a stance and then I stopped looking at everything around it. But in the end, I was like, no, do I want this? Yes. But these are the things I'm willing to accept. And it sounds like you're also kind of like, I want people to be more trained, but I'm open to a stricter this and potentially some changes, even
Yeah,
if I don't know what they are.
So the fact of the matter is this. So my view on it is like, I want less gun violence. I want less innocent people to be hurt. If you could guarantee me that if we banned guns, we could stop even the vast majority, like 90% of gun violence, then I'd be like, fuck it, take them. I will carry a sword around on my hip, boy, so fast. But it's not reality. I don't think it's something rooted in reality. I don't think it's
I think we
something
could
even
find
possible.
out. I think we can find. Let's try it. Maybe, what if it's only 50%? I think that's value, right? I think it's 50% is value. I
But
look
I
at,
also there's some selfishness. I have to look out for me and my family. I have had a gun held to the back of my head. I've had a gun pointed at me in another situation. I've had a gun, you were with me, pulled on me in another situation. Like, I've been there. I know what people are capable of. I see a lot of gun violence in my line of work. And I'm just not comfortable being in those positions unarmed. I'm just not. I don't ever want to be in those positions again. I refuse. So I have my own personal reasons, and that is my number one reason for never wanting to give it up. It's not because I think they're cool. I do. It's not because I enjoy shooting it. I do. I went shooting today. But in the end, to me, this is a absolutely necessary thing for me to have to protect me and my family.
So I think that brings us back to the point of we're probably too far into it at this point,
Mhm.
and we're kind of stuck with the situation that we're in, and then we're trying to find ways to mitigate the unwanted violence that we do have and how to fix that. And I don't know. That's a real hard question that is out there.
It's probably much above our heads. Like I said, this is not a decision that 4 guys make or 100 guys make. I mean, we all have to figure this out together. But it's like the disease exists. How do we handle it the best way we can?
I don't know. How did we handle COVID?
Well,
We lock everybody down.
That's honestly not. I mean, that's not a bad
We
kind of
vaccinate
comparison.
people's guns.
Yeah.
They just shoot little vaccine little syringes.
But then
Well,
the only
guns.
problem is that everybody who has a gun won't get a vaccine, right? They didn't do it in COVID. They're not going to do it now, you know?
Hey,
You ain't vaccinating my guns.
That's what I'm saying. First they'll come for the guns, then they'll vaccinate us.
Hey, I got my microchips and my guns, so all during the pandemic, baby.
Yeah, that's again going us back to a stereotyping people. We shouldn't do that.
We should do.
Well, I get most Americans are for the greater good. and most Americans are in the middle. I do think there's a lot of portrayal of extremes, and the middle ground isn't exciting. So it's not going to be shown.
Mhm.
It's not highlighted. It's not portrayed. It's, oh, look at this extreme side. Oh, look at this extreme side.
I
I have
also
a lot of
think middle ground people pick a side when pressure gets put on. Right?
Yeah.
Like Sean is more middle ground than he's led to believe. Thank God, because I was about to be like, who is this? But when the pressure came on, he just picked the spot he was at that moment. It was like, okay, I'm in right here. And so you get that from the middle ground sometimes.
Yeah.
So some data, and this came from the BBC. 52% of people in the US are in favor of stricter gun laws. Now that doesn't say what that means. That just means like, hey, stricter
Any
gun laws, you in
restriction.
favor?
Yeah.
Like anything. That could be as little as like, hey, we're just gonna do,
That number is
magazine
low.
capacity.
Oh, that's
we're
also
gonna do
just 52% of the people that they polled.
Yeah, but
fair enough.
normally
Yeah,
when
yeah,
when these polls are done, normally again they can be skewed, whatever. They ask like a demographic that they know has diversity and whatever. Like if done correctly, that's how polls should
Yeah.
be done. So if we go
Yeah.
under that, guys, this is very low compared to what
So,
I thought it would be.
52% in favor of stricter, 35% keep it as it is right now, and 11% said less strict.
And those are
So
criminals.
11% of people are like, bro, if you do not let me get my hands on an MG42, I will riot.
Like, what goes through people's heads? Like, we need less gun laws.
Bro,
I don't know. Sean, tell us.
I would absolutely
want
love to
an
put a machine gun
anti-tank rifle
bunker
on
on
my
my
porch.
roof. Bro, if I could put a machine gun bunker on my roof, like, who's going to mess with me?
The insurgents, dude.
Like, they
But
start
if
coming
you
down
can
the
put
street,
a
and,
bunker on top of
they're
your
going
house,
through the
some guy's
car,
gonna
and
buy
it's
a
like,
grenade.
just miss, just pink miss, bro. No, so as far as I get into, like, I'm not someone who thinks that I'm never going to fight the government or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm just very empathetic, and I can see where people are coming from. I can understand the way people get to the line of thought they're in. And so I understand why they feel this way and all these things. And through research, I realize, okay, people have done this before. We're still fighting, and in some capacities, insurgent warfare. It's a thing. I'm also, as far as I get in, like, a kind of maybe conspiracy, but more of extreme thought, is like, one of the biggest threats I see to this country right now is right-wing extremism, like far right-wing extremism.
Oh, so you're infiltrating.
No, I'm defending myself. So I want to buy more guns, and I'm still trying to convince my wife of this, but nothing I currently have will get through body armor. And a lot of far-right extreme militias and things like that have body armor, obviously ARs, things like that. And if they decide to start coming down the street or like into my house, I need to be able to defeat them. So I need to buy an AR.
I don't know, dude. Maybe just get like a good old infantry cannon. Set it up the top of your stairs and
You said the thing
99 chihuahuas.
if you go far enough left, you enough right, bro. That's you.
That's not what I said.
No.
You completely misheard what I said. So what that's saying is, so like in this country, like they say that if left wingers want to take all your guns. What they're referring to is kind of like liberals, like the centrist to like lightly left of center. What I'm talking about is like when you get far left, you get the anarchists, socialists, commies, those guys who are all vastly majority in favor of guns because they see it as their way to defend themselves against the other side of the spectrum.
That's what
the saying
said.
is.
Yeah, you were like, I want guns to protect myself against the right wingers.
Yes, that's literally the definition of what I said.
Yeah, that's what I said. And you said, no, you misunderstood me.
You said that I was something about going so far left to become a right winger. That's not what I said. You just said that.
Yeah, you get your guns back.
Yeah,
that's what it was. You go far enough left that you get your guns back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to pass through the gun control guys to get to the pro gun lefties.
Wow.
So if there's anything we've learned here today, Americans want their rights, and they want to defend them by any means necessary, whatever those rights mean
and
to
Steven
you.
wants the ball to go away. Take away all your rights, dude. I don't want any of your rights.
You dang commie.
You get no guns. You get no porn.
I go far. I go far enough left that I pass the gun guys and just end up by myself on the far side. No, what a journey.
There's a YouTuber named Bo the Fifth Column, and they had asked him like, what is your perfect like how do you envision America? And he had a really good one, but it was funny. He was like, I just and he's very southern accent, but something about I envision a gay couple using cryptocurrency to order like their whatever food delivered to their house, and they're drinking some sort of wine that their neighbors made, and they've got an AR-15 over the fireplace, and they've and it's just like this ultimately free society. Like, you are allowed to do whatever you want, as long as you don't affect anybody else. Like, as long as you're not restricting or affecting the rights of anybody else, you are free to do as you please. Like, man, that sounds really ideal.
Yeah, can't do it.
People are stupid as shit.
That's why we have governments, we have rules, and we have laws, and that's why societies always form.
And don't get me wrong, I'm probably miscategorizing everything you said. I just like that picture of being able to order my food and have my AR-15 up there and just chill with my neighbors and everybody's cool. But like, I'm also the type like, as much as I'm like everybody should be able to defend themselves and do these things, I'm also the view that I think a lot of people are too stupid to even get up and out of bed in the morning, let alone drive, let alone operate a firearm. Like, I'm not saying that we should take those people's rights away, but sometimes when I'm in traffic, I really, really, really wish that it was harder to do a lot of these things. Yeah.
So it sounds like we're ready to start a new world order here on our.
It
the
sounds like in the
The
last
Honest Man Nation.
in the last 30 minutes, we've turned Sean.
Yeah,
he's slowly but surely starting. Now he's like, I agree. Most people out there are idiots, and they should have known guns. Well, I do too, Sean. So why don't we just take their guns away?
I'm not saying that you should take them away from them.
We got them, boys. One of me. One. I was gonna say us.
I was gonna say you boys, but like,
well, Andy agreed with me a couple times. So
yeah, I'm very middle of the ground.
So Chris,
when it comes to a lot of this stuff.
Chris, what kind of guns you gonna get?
I don't know yet.
We
haven't decided. We actually had some violence happen across our street a couple weeks ago, and that kind of made me want to own a gun a little bit more.
Fear is a motivator, man.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, when it comes to, and like I said, it goes back to that. I fear what the other person's got going on, so I need to protect myself.
Yeah, I live in a state and a city with pretty notorious gun violence too. So,
I mean, and that's the thing is, I think we don't live in the situation that we can avoid that. So it's a good idea, as long as you're competent. I think everybody should.
He's turning back.
That never changed, brother.
I applied pressure. I mentioned it, and he's like, no. Everybody should have a gun.
he made that third left, and I was going right again.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You acknowledge it, you smile, you keep it moving. You can't talk about it, man.
I messed up. I mentioned it, and then he's like, wait a second. No, everybody should have their guns. I want to give them to everybody. I'm handing them out.
Remember the caveat in there, right? Competency.
Always giving them the loot to go back.
Then we're okay. The problem is, boy, they're not.
All right, so I can say that I think we've learned here today that America's fascination with guns started in 1776 and beyond. We had a fascination with guns, and it's grown to what it is now. There's no going back at this point. And I do think most Americans do want a safer America. It's how to get there. That is the question. We don't have the answers here today, but if you guys would like to comment, please comment down below. We would like to hear your discussions, your thoughts, your ideas on this and how to get there. How do you feel? Let us know. Check us out on BeHonestMan.com. We have links to all of our socials there. And as always, be honest, man.